Hello there, Toyota only YouTubers. This is how to change a starter motor on a RAV4 with the 2 litre 4D4 diesel engine. These are sort of well known for having a hot starting problem, and I seem to have that. The car's okay. If you should drive for 5 minutes down the road and say go in the filling station and fill up, and it'll start. You drive it for half an hour and do the same thing, go in the filling station, and it'll crank and it'll crank and it'll crank, and he won't go. And apparently the common course of this is the starter motor failing. The original starter motors have a 1.4 kilowatt motor, and this replacement one that I've obtained from Mr. Auto, and unbelievably I think it was delivered from France or Belgium, is not a brand I've ever heard of before. CVAM I think they're called, but these replacement ones are 2.2 kilowatt, and if you look at the various brands of replacement ones, they're all sort of 2 or 2.2 kilowatt Bosch ones, and I think the original was a Nippon Denso. I think even the replacement Nippon Densos are the same. The first things we're going to do is we're going to make a little bit of space. We're going to remove the coolant header. We've already undone the nuts here, and loosen the pipe off the clip here, so that can be loosened out of the way. The next thing we're going to do is remove the intercooler pipe. My assistant, Mr. Dave, and this great big long extension bar, is undoing that right now. And there's another hose clamp right down the bottom. Mostly hose clamps have got 7mm heads on them, but I think these are 10s. So that comes loose like so, and like so. Won't drop the thing, and you can see the starter motor down in there with the orange Toyota label on it. I think the next thing we're going to do is remove the air filter housing. Here we go with taking the air filter housing off. There's 10mm bolts mostly holding it. The mass airflow sensor we're going to disconnect now. Bit fiddly. There we go. You've undone the hose clamp on that there, and clipped up the top things, and it hinges up and away like so. There's the filter out, and down the bottom there is a couple of more 10mm bolts, or 10mm headed bolts, 6 mils. And the whole assembly lifts out like so. Buried down in there is the bolts we're going to access to remove the starter motor. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the battery, obviously for safety's sake. The battery lives underneath the windscreen slam panel there, so we're going to remove that one and disconnect both the leads of that. I don't think we'll bother showing that in any great detail. Right, having removed the air filter assembly, we managed to get onto I'll show you where the bolts are for the actually holding on bolts to the starter motor. I've put an extension bar, 3/8 extension bar on this one, and that's down in there. 14mm heads on these bolts, and this one way down in here. I can get it so you can see it, not easy. Put a torch down there to illuminate the scene, as it were. It's the scene of the crime. Let's put the looms in the way. You can see the extension bar there, and there's a 3/8 wobbly bar on the end of it, and the nut is tucked way down in there. So we're going to crack them off with a breaker bar, and then put the air ratchet on and run them out. This is doing the old-fashioned way. Very handy little stubby ratchet, which has his moments for jobs like this. Access to the bottom of the starter motor, there is a little panel underneath the engine with 4 bolts, one here, one here, one here, 3 rather, and we can pull this plastic trim down and gain access to the bottom of the starter motor to make disconnecting the connections easier. Here we are with the plastic panel folded back out of the way. Well, you can better see very well underneath here, but you can see the oil filter there. It certainly makes changing the oil filter a little bit easier, although I managed to get oil everywhere. And up in there, there's probably burnt out by the sunlight coming down, is the connections to the starter motor. There's basically one nut and one push-on connector we're going to pull off. A long extension bar with a 12mm, well in this case long reach socket, reaches up and gets onto the terminals okay. There's a nice long extension bar, not losing a 12mm nut. Now we've had quite a bit of trouble getting the small cable on the starter motor, which is this one here, to actually disconnect. You've got to push in the top, there's a little tab thing, and I wound up holding it underneath, the motor underneath while Dave fiddled with the thing. So that's him come out, and basically fitting is the reverser removal. There you go.
We'll compare the two.
Yeah, you can see the comparison between the two starter motors. That's the original, and that's the new one. As you can see, it's considerably bigger and considerably more powerful. Hopefully it will cure my hot starting problem. I will let you know about that. Well, there we are with the starter motor actually fitted, and as you can see, it only just goes in there. Hardest thing to do is definitely get the solenoid, the control cable on and off on the starter. I did manage to use my little 3/8 air gun in the end to run the nuts in. So next step is put it all back together and see if it starts.